Just a couple of guys, a couple microphones, and a heck of a lot of know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, Odos? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know Show.
Playoff time, baby.
Playoff edition. And what the hell happened last week? We witnessed, I don't even know when the last time it happened in the NFL, that there was that many upsets in the first round of the playoffs. Wow. Did anybody see the Eagles kind of faltering against Tampa Bay? We thought it was a favorable matchup for the Eagles, somebody that they should have beat. Yeah. But Tampa Bay came to play. They definitely had the defensive. We talked about how good their defense was, how they were kind of underrated, and they proved it against the Eagles for sure.
Yeah, that pass rush, man, that they had, they were just all over the ball there, and stopping it, and really run stopping too.
You mentioned that was a critical play for the Eagles to establish the run game,
and they just couldn't
do it at all.
Yep.
Vita Vea in the middle, man. That guy's an animal. He was stopping everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It was wherever they tried, they just couldn't get it done, and that was the key, like we said. And it goes down to even the fact that maybe all season they've kind of been up and down. And Jalen Hurts, when he was interviewed after the end of the season, after that game, he said, listen, all season long we've been looking for our own identity. Since Brian Johnson took over, he's been looking for that thing, like he knew what we were before, but now it seems like they weren't sure if they should be a run first team, but going to run out of the pistol, because even this year it seems they weren't doing so much of those read options like Jalen Hurts keep it and kind of keep it open. It was more like they were asking him to stay that pocket passer, and then they just run the ball, on occasion, and it was just all over the place. The only thing that really worked for them offensively, unfortunately, too, as well, as they were in fourth down a lot of different times, and that tush push was their only positive note. But what do they do going forward after this? I know Sirianni had met with the ownership and the GM and things after this season and ended here. So they're talking about coaching changes, not exactly Sirianni, but maybe somebody underneath him. Somebody might get some changes there happening. But Jason Kelce retires. That's a big guy, that you're Hall of Famer there. The key to the offense is missing now. So what do the Eagles do moving forward here after this?
It's not official yet. It's been reported that it happened, but Jason Kelce came back out and reaffirmed, no, I haven't made a decision yet. So that's not even 100% yet. But we expect it to happen. Honestly, my opinion is I expect Kelce's had enough.
He looked like it.
This guy, here's the thing, is when you are the cornerstone of that offensive line, but also more than that, is ever since you started doing the brotherly shove, you get trampled every time you guys do it. And they've done it so often and have been so successful because of Kelce, but he's getting literally driven into the ground and stepped on and he's the last one to pop up, and luckily that he does. So I think for an aging offensive lineman like that, for him to withstand all of that last year and this year, it's kind of gotten to a point where, does he really want to take that physical beating now anymore as a veteran? It might be time to say, you know what, I want to enjoy life. I want to enjoy it with my kids and my wife and hang him up. And I wouldn't be upset if he did decide that. I know a lot of Eagles fans obviously are going to miss him, but man, this guy has done everything possible for this franchise, and a tremendous career at that.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Dennis Lebner in the house with us tonight.
What's up, Dennis? What's up, fellas?
Yeah, absolutely.
Also says he will return to the NFL.
To Kansas City. Watch. He's
KC
like, boom,
watch.
He's calling it. Boom. Hey, imagine that, though. What a story. You know what I mean? Hey, bro, let's run it, with this. Let's get done. Especially if KC exits early, too, and they don't get it done. Maybe they do invest in something with that. That would be pretty crazy.
No, they already have Creed Humphrey.
Yeah. that would be funny, though, and what a story it would be. But like you said, though, you just look at that team, and for some reason, again, I think it's two different things. One, they just look tired. Like that whole game, Tampa Bay looked refreshed. They looked energetic. They were ready to go. They were ready to enter that game and go in. And it looked like Philadelphia was trying to stay calm in the beginning. Like kind of they walked in, or like, here we go, let's do it. But they just were lethargic. They just looked tired on both ends already. And when that defense, we said that defense has been suspect all season in that secondary, and they got exposed big time by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everybody's been doing their homework on these guys. And you know what? I think making that switch to Matt Patricia was probably the wrong thing to do too.
I don't even think it made a difference, to be honest with you.
Well, Sean Desai, you know, he's even up in the booth still doing his thing up there, and Matt Patricia's on the bottom. So Sean Desai wasn't even like he got fired. There's like, here, we're just gonna make a switch quick, and he would do that, and maybe that rubbed some of the defensive players even the wrong way in a sense, and just couldn't not even that they're defiant, but maybe they just don't buy into what Matt Patricia's trying to preach, because we've also heard from when he was a head coach, with the Detroit Lions, and even coming from that Patriot tree, they kind of come at you a different way, and a lot of players don't react the same way.
Well, Matt Patricia, yeah, he's a little bit brash, obviously, but he's not like Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels was the absolute worst person to try to deal with players on a personal level. Matt Patricia, yeah, he's a little brash and stuff, but he's not that extreme. What I will say about that whole defensive situation is that it didn't really matter who the D coordinator was. You're running the same defense, whether it be Matt Patricia calling it or Desai. They both are calling the same defense. Nothing's really changing except for the play calls, where one might be more aggressive, the other one might be a little bit more passive, or a little bit of both. And I didn't think that you saw much of a change depending on whoever was calling it, because that defense never got better. But also, we got to remember that the offense still hasn't scored points. So that is also a part of this. Like, when you don't score points as an offense to help your defense out, to give them a rest on the sideline, defense is going to struggle more times than not. Mm-hmm. And then also just throw in there that defense is different. People people look at like the corners and the defensive line that they have, and they don't pay too much attention to the fact that they've lost cornerstones of that defense. Mike Epps at safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson at defensive back. Like, he was a tremendous asset to them that they could move him around like a chess piece on the defense. And you had other pieces even in the linebacking core that are gone, that weren't there from a year before. So changes with personnel, changes with the new play calling on the defense, that all happened. Now, it's not that they're a terrible defense, but the offense on the other side has to help the defense. Mm-hmm. If you get no help on that side of the ball, you're playing the majority of the game as a defender. You're going to get gassed. You're going to get tired, and it's going to lead to giving up points on your end. So, yeah, you can point the finger at the defense all you want, but I'm still pointing the finger heavily on the offense for not being able to put up points like they did a year before.
Right, and I think you bring in that DeAndre Swift for a reason. Like, you get rid of Miles Sanders and all that, and you need to be able to pound that ball, because you know what it does? It makes the other defense tired, wears them out. Time of possession, you control the game. And then you're not asking Jalen Hurts to do a whole. This is what I mean. It seems like this offense, they just were like, all right, Jalen Hurts is our guy. We're going to show him off now. This guy's ready, and let's make it all about him and do that. But he performed better, I think, when he was that other option to take it off and run. Joe, we've got more comments in here. They're going quick, so why don't you
here we go. Eric Bowers, welcome to the show, bro. He said Philly wasn't the same team as they were last year. They just played not as aggressive offensively and defensively. See, I don't agree. They played pretty much the same. They made the same kind of calls that they would make last year. It's just something wasn't right, especially offensively. Like, I actually believe that most of the season, Jalen Hurts wasn't right. Like, something like health-wise, there was something up with him. And then you saw it even more in this playoff game, where Jalen Hurts, he's got an interesting demeanor about him. He's always calm, cool, collected, but he doesn't ever show emotion.
Yeah.
And when he's sitting on the bench and the camera keeps panning to him, and you just see like this, stone cold look, all business, and he goes back out there and things don't go well. They're 3-and-out again and comes back off. I actually saw for the first time some emotion from him because the defense made a play. It was like, yeah, that's what we needed. They stopped him. You know? That right there told me that they were worried. Because if you're hoping that one scenario happens for your team over the other, or the defense stops them finally, and then you get another chance, that team, that Eagles team, yes, they're a shell of themselves from last year, for sure. Mm-hmm. But things did change. Also, you got to say what it is. Like, A.J. Brown was missing. That is a key player for them offensively that they love to get the rock to and make plays after the catch. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you right now, Devonta Smith did everything he possibly could, but he was a one-man army out there, and nobody else stepped up.
Yeah, and it seems like they were just really trying to push it to him. I mean, I guess that's the only weapons you got, though, too. But again,
nobody else is getting open.
Offense, too, they had to make some changes. They didn't make enough. And, Baltimore or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they came to play, getting safeties, on defense, too. I mean, they were just all over them. And like I said, I think that offensive line, Lane Johnson, all those guys, they were just tired. They were getting beat up. They were just exhausted by the end of the day. So.
Why are you tired? You're sitting down on the sidelines most of the game. Mm-hmm. You're going 3 and out. There's no reason to be tired. I just think they had a bad game altogether, like collectively, especially on offense. Defense, they did what they could to try to stay in the game, but Buccaneers, what we'll say about them is you got to give them credit. You can't. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You cannot discount the fact that the Buccaneers had a great game plan against the Eagles. They executed it phenomenally. Baker Mayfield had a tremendous game. Did not turn the ball over, had over 300 passing yards, had 3 touchdown passes. Like, the guy was what you needed him to be in that situation, and he has been later in the season. Mm-hmm. He's been that quarterback. Mm-hmm. So we've said how much that franchise could fall if they didn't find an answer at Q. I'm not saying that he's the future starter for Tampa, but I'm saying as of right now, they hit gold. Yeah. Because for him to play the way he's been playing, that gives them a chance to beat anybody, because the question wasn't, well, their offensive line is real shaky, they need to upgrade it. No, they have a pretty solid offensive line. The receiving weapons, and then you go on their defense, and we've always raved about how well put together that defensive side of the ball is, but Baker was the question mark. Mm-hmm. Baker is proving people wrong right now that he is a legitimate starter, that he is here to stay. And who knows if he continues with Tampa or not. But this is great for Baker to be able to show off to everybody, like, hey, listen, I can do this. I proved it 1 year with the Rams, and now I'm proving it again with Tampa Bay. So good for Baker, good for Tampa, and who knows how far they can go. I don't think they can make it all the way, but it's actually a kind of a cool story for Baker Mayfield anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, he really got a lot more confidence here working with Sean McVay those few weeks there, and that has just carried over to Tampa Bay. So it looks good for them moving forward. We got a lot of comments, Joe. Let's go hit them up here. Where are we at?
And we got Eric Bowers. Or no, we got Paul Maddie. Greetings from Playlinda Beach.
Hey,
greetings,
Paul
buddy.
Maddie's
Welcome
in the
to
house
the
with
show.
us, too.
Eric Bauer said, Philly was my early pick to win the Super Bowl. Boy, was I wrong. And we won't fault you for that, because everybody had the Eagles, us included. We thought the Eagles were going to be much like last year, and they were going to make a push. It was going to be like probably Niners and Philly in the championship game. But obviously that derailed early in the season, and they've never been the same. Tom Leiter said, he's replying, I got to go with Baltimore now. Because Tom Leiter probably picked them too.
Yeah.
Tough to call between Baltimore and the Niners. And that's the Super Bowl, guys. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, because if
anything
the first round,
now we've noticed, right?
If the first round of playoffs has taught us anything, it's a whole new ball game. It really is. We saw a lot of upsets in the first round, and who knows? It's possible it can happen in the next round. Leiter also, he's replying. Dennis said, Bills versus Lions, let's go Buffalo. Dennis is a diehard Bills Mafia fan there.
Bills Mafia in the house. All right.
Of course, he's going to root for his own team.
Yeah,
but that's going to be another battle too.
Lastly, on this game too, for the Buccaneers though, their draft picks, it seemed like they've really turned out too. I mean, with
Well-
Yaya Diaby, you know, what they've been able to do, and Trey Palmer had a big game in that last game,
But
too.
let's
So,
remember,
I mean,
the last regime that was there, that's where all those players came from. It's not from Todd Bowles' regime of him making some of these picks. Like, he had an insight in it, but really, I give props to the last regime a lot for that.
all right. So moving on to what about the Cleveland Browns game? How about that and the Houston Texans, Joe? I thought the Browns would put a little bit more of a fight, and I didn't think that. Well, what it was is Joe Flacco really coming back down to earth, I guess, as that guy on the couch, making some turnovers. But he was actually getting pressured. That offensive line wasn't protected.
I'm telling you, right? I told people to stop underrating the Houston Texans. Midway through the season, I was really pushing hard for them because here's the deal: is Houston, as young as they are playing well above expectations and playing at a very high level in football. They do a lot of things really, really well. They fly to the ball sideline to sideline on defense. They just like you mentioned, they create a lot of pressure. They have good coverage defensive backs in the backfield. And then offensively, it starts with your quarterback. And C.J. Stroud has been a immense talent for that Texans organization to not only as a rookie to just kind of like manage the games, but he's also playing like like he's been in the league for 10 years. It's absolutely insane for a rookie to come in and do what he's been doing. And he's been able to keep that same temperament, same calmness, and that veteran leadership that as a rookie has been able to propel this offense to be much better than what anybody had expected. So for Stroud to do what he's been doing the same thing all year. So now this team collectively comes into the playoffs. I thought they had a really good shot to beat Cleveland. I know Cleveland had the best defense in the league statistically and whatnot, and Joe Flacco had an amazing second part of the season coming off the couch and what have you. But I gotta say, Houston really showed everybody last week that they are for real, and now you have to take them seriously. So, big test though. I mean, this is probably the biggest test they'll ever have is by facing the number 1 seed in the AFC in Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. If somehow they're able to beat Baltimore, who knows what's going to happen after that? Because that would be the biggest hurdle they got to get over, and then go to the championship game and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, and what's kind of funny, it's because you gauge it off of kind of what their expectations, because they're not like a 9-8 team coming into this playoffs. They actually came through and were winning the division. They just weren't expected to. And now to make that push, it was almost like when we looked at the Bengals, when we were like, hey, look at this team. They drafted really well. I think they could come along, and then just with some time, here they come. And they kind of prematurely, jumped ahead of it, and here earlier than we expected. They're like, whoa. And now they're on in here. And so they could make that push just like what those Bengals did. So to be able to knock out the Browns, who had the toughest defense. And like I said last week, defense wins championships, but they just made a mockery of that. And to face and beat the Ravens, who really have been untouchable the whole season. So if you take down that monster,
for the most part,
then it's anybody's game.
But then again, the Baltimore's has let people down and have lost to mediocre teams this past season.
Yeah,
so it's
true
like,
too.
Yeah, they have a great record, but those short amount of losses, they came from teams that weren't playoff caliber. They were just maybe they were overlooking them. Maybe they were preparing for the next team they had to face or something like that, looking past them. But I don't know. But it's like losses like that kind of make you scratch your head. Like this whole season, we've thought we had it pinned. We thought we had these teams pinned. We're like, this is a good team. This is a mediocre team. This is a bad team. But then the bad team beat the really good team, and then the mediocre team lost to the bad team, and it's been very confusing.
Goes the NFL, Joe.
So here we are.
Absolutely.
Patriots can't win without Tom Brady, but Tampa can. Not a good look for Belichick. That's from Tom Leiter. It's funny but I will say this: the two different rosters completely. Like one was only missing quarterback, and that's it. Patriots had a really good defense, but their offense is lacking. Bauer said, I would love to see the Bills and Lions in the Super Bowl. I don't think it's going to happen. But, hey, we didn't think that Houston would make it this far. We didn't think, that Tampa Bay would beat the Eagles. So who knows?
Yeah.
Eric said, I predicted to not sleep on Houston early in the season. Good for you, bro. Leiter replied to Dennis, said, I'd love to see KC knocked out this week. Get rid of the TMZ sideshow. Go Bills.
Yeah, absolutely. We agree with that, too, as well, right?
And then our one of our OGs, Mike Tackett himself, said,
Tackett's in the house.
Watching from my daughter's old tablet while I await my phone to be repaired.
That's right. He's still having the phone issue.
And shipped back to me. I've got to admit, I was wrong. After Philly's 10-1 start, they ended up losing six of their last 7. Perhaps one of the greatest collapses in NFL history. A perfect example of teams getting hot at the wrong time, whereas Green Bay and Houston got hot at the right time. And that's absolutely correct, because you want momentum when you get into the playoff. When you're approaching the playoffs, when you're entering the playoffs, you want to have momentum. You want to be one of the hot teams, because if you're playing your best football at the end of the year going into the playoffs, it gives you ample opportunity to continue that success. I totally agree.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too. The Green Bay Packers. I mean, if you're looking at, we were talking about with the Texans and their head coach being coach of the year, I really got to hand it to what the Green Bay Packers have done there, too, because, again, we didn't know what to expect, with Jordan Love, especially not being able to start, you're there with Aaron Rodgers there, not hearing a whole lot that he's coming along. It looked rough, in the beginning of this season. And it just made a push, and it just kept going and working at it. And so lo and behold, here they are, youngest team in the NFL, knocking out the Dallas Cowboys and in the playoff hunt.
And Jordan, and listen, we talk about hot teams. Jordan Love was playing amazingly the last few weeks of the season, going into the playoffs. And then for him, the last 8 games, he was on fire. I think he threw double-digit touchdowns and only 1 interception or something crazy that was his stat. And then going into the playoffs, which gave them a shot. All the receivers were healthy for once, or at least healthy enough to play.
On occasion, yeah.
And who are you going to defend? It was Cowboys defense had a hard time figuring out how they were going to play this Packers offense and who they had to key on. And Romeo Doubs lit it up in that game.
Yep.
But even if Doubs was locked up, then you had Jaden Reed that they had to worry about. Christian Watson, there was a lot going on for Green Bay. And remember, Jim, I was concerned for Green Bay's defense against Cowboys' offense. Green Bay's defense, at times, I was like, oh, here we go. They're going to give this thing up, because they kept playing this soft zone, allowing CeeDee Lamb to get into the middle of the field, catching footballs. And I'm like, that's what you can't do against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Don't give them space. And so there was times throughout the game where they were allowing that to happen. Then for some reason, they started dialing up pressure. They started getting tighter in coverage and not allowing those wide open plays happen.
Right.
So that was the key. Right. And that when we saw that happen, and then on top of it all, Matt LaFleur not letting off the gas.
Yes.
Applying more points, more points. And they just and then the defense picked up and had a couple of pick sixes, and it just really blew it
they
wide
played
open.
right into it. Dak Prescott played right into it. Again, they got physical with the receivers, and that's what you want to do too. Jair Alexander following CeeDee Lamb a lot.
Until he got hurt.
Yeah. But again, he was one big part of that.
Huge.
But yeah, how about Green Bay though? Again, I'm watching the game. They put their foot on their throats to get that last touchdown. I'm like, here they go.
He just
and
kept
then
going.
They pull everybody. Like what? I'm like, it was a bit early for me. I'm like, why are you pulling everybody right now? Because there's a lot of time left over. This is a little early for me. I get you think you have this in the hand, which you should.
Cowboys were only down by 2 scores.
Well, they were down, by 30. They were down by 32 at one point, and that's when they pulled everybody out.
I'm saying that they came back and they were only down by 2 scores before they put everybody back in.
before they put everybody back in. But that's what I mean. If you pull everybody out, you're expecting that you pretty much got it locked in. You shouldn't have to put everybody back in. That's how you knew you did it prematurely.
Right.
Because, again, what they do, that soft cloud defense, and let them bring it short.
It was almost bang. It was almost like a prevent.
Oh, it was easy.
It was almost like
it's
that.
like, what are you doing right now? You're handing this away, and you could start to feel that they were kind of feeling, they're like, uh-oh. Wait a minute. Hey, Jordan, we guys got to get back out there quick just to make sure that we got this, because that would win the most. Everybody's talking about how the Cowboys are getting embarrassed 48-16 at this point, and then it gets closer to 48-32. That would have been more embarrassing. Everybody talks about the Atlanta Falcons giving it up to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. If the Green Bay Packers lose this game in the last 5 minutes and 56 seconds because they pulled everybody out too early, premature pulling out.
What I was a little confused
about
a bad
issue
in
there.
that game.
It would have been big news.
Is not pulling your offensive players out early. That didn't bother me. It was the defensive
players.
Because you needed your best players out there at all times to make sure this game is locked down and good. But then you not only pulled your offensive players, but you also pulled your defensive starters out. For the most part, I saw backup linebackers in there and defensive backs, and I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah,
that's why they're going right down the field, is because you guys don't have your best players out there.
Yeah,
you're letting them right back in the game.
It was brutal, man. But imagine that too. As you're a player, you're like,
Green Bay would not hear the end of it if that happened.
Didn't it? I'm talking about from Matt LaFleur being the one of the up for the coach of the year, possibly impressive in what they've done, to an embarrassment. That's an embarrassment if you do that. But talking about embarrassments again, Joe.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys. Again, embarrassed there. Just the pressure. They get to the playoffs. They're 12-5, 12 wins for 3 consecutive seasons for Mike McCarthy. And again, an early exit.
And what's crazy about this is that they were showing the last time the Cowboys made it past the first round. It's been years.
Yeah.
It's like every time they make the playoffs, they lose in the first round. The first time they play, they're done. You got to do something differently. I don't know, get better, just be better.
Just get better.
Here's my thing: is Mike McCarthy, right? There was points in that game where I feel like if they established the run game a little bit more and try to get back on track that way, and not early in the game though, if they were able to run, because they could run. Tony Pollard has some nice 5 to 10 yard gains, and then they rotate backs and they would get a few yards here and a few yards there and keep the momentum going and keep the drive going. But we know how pass happy Mike McCarthy is, and I feel like it bit him in the ass in the playoffs. Is because he knew he had CeeDee Lamb and Dak and all these receivers and Brandon Cooks, and it's almost like he wanted to prove everybody wrong. He's like, no, I can call passing plays and we can win. Instead of early on being more balanced, running the football, allowing your offensive linemen to push downhill on these D linemen and really kind of force and pressure the issue against Green Bay. But we didn't see enough of that. Not enough of the running game, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's what we were looking at. What was Tony Pollard going to be able to do? This offense. CeeDee Lamb, again, for as much that everybody loves him and how many yards he gets and when he does, way too many drops for me. You know what I mean?
Two big drops in the beginning of the game.
There. And like you said, it happened to be in those opportunities to where some of them were, when there was right there in the middle of the zone, he dropped one that was wide open.
First down.
Really easy.
Both
one was
those
out
drops.
of reach, but there was one that was put right on the money. Again, he is contested a little bit, but a guy like him should catch that. And not coming up in those big games, that's why everybody puts pressure on them and says that they can't get it done. We're just hearing now that Mike McCarthy is coming back, so all that can be put to bed now. All that.
Yep. Everybody's worried about are they moving on from him? Are they bringing Belichick in?
The Belichick story.
Everybody kept saying Belichick. I'm like that. I don't see it.
I think it was just spicy for everybody.
I don't
you know what
see
I mean?
it.
But
all right.
What do you do though? I mean, that's what I mean though. What do you do though if you got a guy? This is the thing. You went with Jason Garrett for 10 seasons. That was what he went 80 something and 60 something. So it was up and down and barely edging into the playoffs, but still expected to win all the way. You got a coach that's brought you 12 wins, 3 consecutive years, and now that's not good enough. See you later. I mean,
Yeah, you
that
can't
wouldn't
do
make
that.
sense here.
It's almost like the Marty Schottenheimer effect. Marty Schottenheimer was one of the most successful head coaches in football. And no matter where he went, where he coached, he would make that team make the playoffs every single year. But he still ended up getting fired and would have to find another team and then make that a playoff team, but just couldn't get deep into the playoffs, couldn't get to the Super Bowl, and he would get fired again. Like, it's the same thing. So, very successful head coach, and Mike McCarthy, I got to give him kudos. As much as I couldn't stand him in Green Bay, with Dallas, it seems like he's consistently a 12-win team. He has a 12-win team, and he makes the playoffs, possibly winning the division with that kind of a record all the time. And then you're putting yourself in a great position, but you can't get past the first game. Like, you got to mix something up. So I feel like for Mike McCarthy, try not to prove you're a guru of a play caller too much in the passing plays and whatever because of the weapons you have. But go back to the ground game. Make it more a 50-50 split in your play calling, because I'm telling you, if you allow the run game to flourish and you start to sustain that in games, Green Bay, especially in this game, Green Bay would be more worried about the run game. And what does that do? Now it takes pressure off of Dak. Dak's able to drop back and sit there for a few seconds before he has to throw, and it opens up the offense. But we didn't see enough of that, and that's why I think more not. It's not that they don't have the players to win. It's not that. It's you got to look at coaching. You got to look at the play calling, whether it be defensive or offensive, because there was some defensive play calls where
they were getting ran all
where
over,
I was like,
beat up, and defense.
I'm like, what are they? They're not doing anything differently. Like, so that game, all in all, let's just say it, they got outcoached. The Cowboys got outcoached, and Green Bay, as young as they are, were able to make it count.
All right, we've got a bunch of comments rolling through here. I think we got Greg Schreiner is in the house.
Yes, we do. Emil Myers from YouTube. What's going on? He said, do you know Mike Hunt? No, I don't know Mike Hunt. Jim, do you know Mike Hunt?
I know Kareem Hunt.
Oh,
and
well, that's
I know
not the same.
Mike Tackett.
That's right, you know Mike Tackett.
Hashtag know it all.
Greg said, if the Bills make the Super Bowl, I'd much rather play anyone else in the NFC except Lions, because they have enough injuries and we can't afford to lose any kneecaps.
Oh, man.
Oh, good one, Greg.
Boom, there you go. That's true. Hey, talk about kneecaps. A lot of guys got hit in the legs and the knees this weekend,
course.
too. Blasted.
Happens.
Some injuries there. All right, Tom Leiter's also there.
Wouldn't it be something if Belichick followed Carroll into Seattle after following him into New England? I mean, who knows? All the cards are on the table right now. Everybody's so curious to see where Belichick's going to, call home. As of right now, we know that Seattle is interested. We know that Atlanta actually completed a interview with Bill Belichick and Jim Harbaugh this week. So they're doing their due diligence. They're bringing in some coaches that they are very interested in, and rightfully so. And there's other teams, that are still kind of out there and obviously they're not allowing the public to know what the direction they're headed in. We know Tennessee interviewed Antonio Pierce. Tennessee also interviewed Aaron Glenn from the Lions, the D coordinator. Sounds like right now Aaron Glenn is the front runner for the Tennessee Titans job. They really loved his interview and what he had to say. So there's a few things that are happening. Bill Belichick, I feel like Bill's going to take his time. He's going to go to whatever teams that are interested in him and that he is interested in as well, and do his due diligence. But in the end, I know that there's mutual interest with Atlanta because of their personnel they already have in place. But my question about Bill, and this is what I'm concerned about for any team that hires him, is Bill is 71 years old. How long do you think this guy is going to coach for? Obviously not very long. Like, is he going to coach for 3 years and then that's it? So are you're only going to be getting a head coach possibly for 3 years, maybe 4, max 5. I mean, and then you're going to have to start all over and find a new head coach. So, I mean, I don't know. Is head coach the route you want to go and bring in Bill Belichick to only have him for a few years and then he retires? That's one thing that concerns me about hiring Bill. Not that he's he knows coaching, he knows the game. He would definitely make your team better, but man, I just don't know about longevity. That's what worries me because just when you're getting hot, maybe just if he happens to turn a club around, then it's like, all right, we got something brewing. I think we might be able to make the playoffs this year. Oh yeah, Bill retired. Okay, cool. Now what?
Yeah, and you can't expect to bring on a head coach that's older like that where, if it's his thing, like, I want to build a team now and build this dynasty and blah, blah, blah. Are you really going to be around for that whole dynasty? You know what I'm saying? And we're not going to bring you in for to have your fun, to do your fantasy league. You know what I mean? It might work out, but who knows? We've seen what he's done in the Patriots with the Patriots here without Tom Brady. Everybody knocks it and stuff like that. Doesn't have the personnel. What's to say if he jumps on a team again that's still kind of building, has some good guys, but doesn't have that quarterback, doesn't get there? Do they find the quarterback? Does it move forward? Or could you land flat on your face after this whole situation? You know what I mean? And are you willing to take that risk? What are you going to do? That's why everybody points to some of these other ones like the Chargers. They already got Justin Herbert, so you don't have to worry about that. And it's a pretty good team. They just need the right direction. But who knows? Again, how long is he going to stick around? Like I said, Chargers kind of made sense because some pretty good personnel, make a few tweaks, you could probably get a championship. He wants to maybe try one more ring with a different franchise. Maybe that's the whole different thing, like Tom Brady. Hey, I can do it without him somewhere else, get another ring, and then peace out.
My thing is he doesn't even have to coach.
He doesn't have to, but I think like you said it before, he's one of those personalities where you can't stop him. He just wants to. He'll do it until he dies. You will have to pry the coaching.
He has the love for the game.
Yeah, the clipboard from his hands.
That's right. He just has the love for the game, and he enjoys coaching. Mm-hmm. So he wants to continue coaching, and it's fine. It's just for how long? Like, is there going to be a guarantee? Whoever does sign him, like guaranteed 5 years. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or something like that to at least give you some kind of length before maybe revisiting it. But Bill Belichick, I think what it comes down to with him is I'd be curious, like, how do you want to assemble your staff? Are you going to start plucking former Patriot assistants from New England and bringing them down here and making it the Patriot way again? Like, because you can't do that. Somebody already tried to do that a couple times. It did, and it failed.
Yes.
Or because when you're going to start over, you're the head coach. You're also a defensive supermind, so you know how to run the defensive side of the ball. Who are you bringing in with your offensive staff? Are you going to bring in someone new and different, like that's a modernized offense? You know what I mean? We see all these high scoring offenses and stuff like that, like creative offenses. I feel like that's where Bill has to head now. He can't keep living in the past and doing what was working 20 years ago. Yeah. It's time to modernize everything, hire some up-and-coming talent in coaching, and then see what you can do.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mike Tackett says, can Jerry justify a $59.5 million hit this year for a very mediocre postseason quarterback? I think Dallas can get the same result from a much cheaper quarterback in 2024. That's the thing, though, with this whole situation with Dak Prescott. They've got to figure out something. Extension's going to be kind of rough on him in the pocket anyways, too. What's he going to be asking for out of his his camp? I mean, before going into that game, he had pretty much all the power in his hands. But really, if you didn't add those two touchdowns at the end of the game, that was like garbage time. That was like given to him. He was getting 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. One was a pick 6. Doesn't look really too good going into that next extension. Plus, they're going to be hurt for money. You got to look at Micah Parsons, who's on a contract year to extend there, and then also CeeDee Lamb, who is also looking to get an extension and stick with the Cowboys too. What are you going to figure out? What's important to you? So Dak, you really got to figure out a situation with him because you can't trade. He has a trade clause in there too as well. It's got to be to a team that he wants. And then that team also needs to have the cap space to handle his contract. You know what I mean? To pay a
Right.
guy $34 million, a year or whatever.
And that's the thing. That's the thing is he actually had.
So what are you gonna do? You know, what I mean?
He actually had a pretty team-friendly deal up to this point.
Up to this point, but now again,
now you had because his final year in 2024 at 31 years old is 29 million base salary and 25 million in a prorated bonus, which brings you to the total of $59 million dollars in 1 year. So they definitely want to redo an extension, and I'll even go further.
or at least a restructure. So then
There's $36 million dollars of 2 void years.
yes.
So that stretches out that the bonus money and whatever, but they're void years. They don't exist or make believe.
Yeah.
So I don't really like how this was constructed because now it's like hitting the Cowboys all at once. A lot of money being shelled out. If they're able to agree on an extension and kind of just spread this out a little bit more, and yeah, you can still give them a raise, but
It's going to have to be in the form of bonus money.
it's
Joe.
gonna be-
it can't be contractual. This and they
Well-
were talking about because I was reading an article from a guy that an agent, and he was saying again, most likely they're push it to 2027. Those last 2 years, 26 and 27, being void years, and kind of just keep pushing it along, and then a little bit more bonus money to cover his money, and
it's
then less
25
on the
and
cap.
26 is the void years. And as far as stretching it out and adding a void year or something, you're just going to hurt your franchise more later on down the road. So if there's going to be any kind of compensation for Dak Prescott, it's going to be off the books. It's going to be up to Jerry Jones to give him a signing bonus because signing bonuses do not count against the cap. So
Yeah.
if you were able to give, I don't know, $30-40 million signing bonus, I know it sounds crazy, but and then have a really low contract for the next 5 years or something like that, that could make it work to where it's not going to hit you deep in the pocket in the cap, but you're still going to be able to keep them there for another 5 years and keep growing. The thing with the franchise quarterback, we've discussed it numerous times, is that once you have one, you really don't want to let it go and let it walk out the door, because once that happens, there's a transition period where things change, but they 9 times out of 10 don't change for the good. You're now you have to try to find your future starter, whether it be in the draft or a free agent or what have you, and then you're not having the same the same promise or same execution on offense as you once did. So you might lack, your offense might not be as good, but it's okay, so you might struggle. And that's the thing is, unless you have a succession plan like what the Green Bay Packers have done a couple times now, where they've taken a quarterback early that they liked, groomed him, and he ended up being their franchise quarterback, and it worked out 2 times. That's amazing, but the Cowboys don't have that right now.
At least not that we expect
and
out
you
of
could
like
say,
Trey Lance,
I mean,
You know what I mean?
don't see
That's
it.
what I'm saying. That would have been your only option because we already know what Cooper Kupp is.
Well,
so you were just hoping in that, back pocket, when they made that trade that he might get something out of it. But I think the owner, Jerry Jones, he's looking to just try and extend this a little bit here and bank on these next couple of years. Because when he spoke to the team after the loss, he basically put it out to these guys, say, listen, I only have a few more years left in this team, in this league, and then I'm done. Like, I want to win now. Like, this time is now. You guys are close. So it sounds like he's ready to just, I don't know, walk away, put his son in charge of things.
It sounds eerily
or
familiar
maybe that he's
with Al Davis.
I don't know, man.
Because Al Davis, in his old age, when he was desperate to win he wanted to win one more Super Bowl before he passed away. And when he got desperate, he started shelling out money to average free agents and giving them a lot of money just to get them to go to the Raiders, and desperation moves, bad decisions. And Jerry Jones, it sounds like he's starting to get to that point where he's like, yeah, I really want to win one more before I call it quits. If he starts to get desperate, now it's a tough thing right here with the finances, what you're going to be able to do, but you don't want to change too much with this team because then you're going to debunk everything that you've got, successfully have gotten to.
Yep. And I think that's why they keep McCarthy, and they're moving forward because the players are behind him. I think they're gelling, and they're there. I think one thing that does loom over this team, and it's maybe put on themselves, it's put on by the media, it's put on by the fans, is that this team, almost like the Yankees again, they expect themselves, they seem like they're superstars. So when they put that uniform on, they feel like there's already an expectation, like we're bigger than life. No matter what grade of a player you are, I play for the Dallas Cowboys. Holy crap, like who gives a shit? There's 31 other teams out there. You play for an NFL franchise. You play hard, you play tough, you play as a team, and you go out there and win. I think just every week and every postseason when it gets there, there's a big, elaborate whole thing that it's like, oh, we're the Cowboys and we're expected to do, and we got to live up to the high. And it's too big for some of these players, I think, because they feel like they are standing in this spotlight or this shadow type of thing that they need to be part of instead of just playing as a team. You know what I'm saying? Go out there and just play as a team. How did the Philadelphia Eagles go out and win their Super Bowl against the juggernaut of a Patriots team? They thought of themselves as underdogs, fighting. They weren't living under this spectacle already like, well, we're the Eagles. We're walking in here. We're the Eagles. Maybe the friggin' fans talk like that way instead of they're singing their gay-ass song in the
Jim.
Stadium.
Now.
But the players don't say, hey, I put on this jersey and there's something expected of me automatically when I put this on. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's just part of it. You know what I'm saying? All right, we got comments. I know there's people making
too
fun
many
of me.
egos, not enough chemistry. That's what Tom Leiter had to say about the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's this whole mentality when with the Cowboys, and I see where you're kind of trying to get to, that they have this prestige about them. That no one can touch them, that everybody should bow down to them type of thing. Yeah. But I still think that they go out there and they play football. I don't think it's like they show up and they just expect everybody to bow down. They still got to do their jobs, and they have been very successful with Mike McCarthy, but they just can't get over the playoff hump. And that's really what the issue is right now. Once they get that corrected, then see what they can do after that.
But I mean, look, do you ever seen even they showed the fans storming into the stadium, running? What are you running for? You bought a ticket. You have a seat. Nobody's going to steal your seat.
My question:
what are you running to get to the concessions?
My question for that:
what is your deal?
How many injuries occurred? Because people got trampled.
Yeah,
people
probably,
got pushed
and they
around.
Don't give a crap, probably.
Oh,
you're not like us Giants fans.
Own Cowboy fans, just you're running all over them. Sounds like a true Giants fan, Greg said.
Oh, yes. Exactly.
Mike Tackett says, Jimmy, the talk around the water cooler in Columbus is fans want former assistant coach and alum Mike Vrabel to replace Ryan Day as head coach. I don't see Vrabs coming back to Columbus. Maybe LA Chargers or New York Jets. What is your opinion of Ohio State trying their own hardball magic to get over this slump? I love it, but not realistic. Also, Scum will have their title vacated. Book it. Oh, wow.
Mike,
calling it.
He's hurt.
It.
You know, Mike,
calling it.
I had the Michigan fight song all queued up for you last week, and you ghosted. That's one. You're here now, and I had the respect not to play it for you this time. I didn't bring it up. But listen, Ohio State's got to do whatever they can to get on top again. They can't handle losing to Michigan for multiple seasons.
They only lost to them, 2 seasons?
That's multiple seasons, Joe.
Only 2.
That's what I'm saying. They can't handle only 2 years. And they're freaking out.
Neither can Michigan. When it's the other way around.
No, Michigan lost to them every single year for a decade. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then we end up getting
and
Harbaugh.
And then they finally got Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, well, and then worked a few different seasons, and we worked at it. These guys are so worried after 2 seasons, they're ready to go out and try and get Mike Vrabel.
Because they like to win.
Vrabel isn't going to go anywhere else but the NFL. Why go down? That makes no sense whatsoever.
You got to look at it this way, though.
What?
If nobody hires him as a head coach and only wants him as an assistant, but here's the thing. This might happen. This is a possibility. Maybe he doesn't line up and nobody wants him to be their head coach. That's not how it goes. Now for him, you go to college as a proven head coach already in the NFL, you could make a huge impact as a HC and get paid buku dollars in college, where you have more power. In college, you just have all the power in the world, and you'll be able to dictate your roster and recruit and do all these things that you can't do in the NFL. So it's not. I don't see it as a negative as long as you're going to a power school. And in the NFL, maybe you're only offered a defensive coordinator job, and that's what's left. So I don't think it's such a big downgrade. I think
it's not a downgrade because, again, you're going to be that head coach of a historic franchise.
Not to mention,
a historic school, rather.
You're going to get paid a lot of money, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But it's highly unlikely. If some of these coaches or these owners aren't paying attention to what he's been able to do with this Tennessee Titans team and what he could do for their franchise, I think that's mind-blowing if he doesn't get a head coaching job. But if you want to talk about Harbaugh and the vacating and blah, 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 all right, whatever. So what? It's already over. We already won. Everybody knows. You can't vacate and think that everybody just forgets about it. It's like these assholes that try and take these statues down and things like that from the Civil War and stuff like that. You don't forget what happened. It already happened, and then things are there.
And it's
you don't
not
just
even
make it
over.
Erase history. And third, look at what even the Houston Astros, they were cheating, and they still win when they weren't. After they got caught and they swapped, they were still winning. We won despite all this and things, and showed, and without having Harbaugh on the sidelines, we still won without it. So if you think we were cheating or not, we still were that good, and we still beat people no matter what.
Yeah, but with the knowledge, possibly with the knowledge
Sure.
of having
Okay.
knowing the calls. That's what I'm saying. So my thing too is that now that happened, where they won the national championship and everything, this thing, they're not out of the neck of the woods yet. Michigan.
Okay.
It hasn't been swept under the rug, and now they're still. Here's my thing that's interesting is that Jim
Carol's
Harbaugh,
entered the chat.
Jim Harbaugh, is now looking to the NFL at this time, and he said the only way he'll re-sign with Michigan is if they can give him immunity of anything that does occur. So he can't. So he's untouchable to the NCAA. And not go have any penalties or suspensions or whatever. They can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I mean. That's why that's where I think Jim Harbaugh in this whole situation, I think that's where you start to peek behind the curtain and say, well, maybe that did actually happen, because Harbaugh is trying to jettison now and go to the NFL and wants immunity if he is to come back to college. It's almost too fishy for this whole situation to occur.
It's phony stuff. It didn't happen.
I think that's the thing to me, where you can argue it all you want, but there's too much smoke around a fire for this.
Yeah, and people are still begging to have him head coach in the NFL. So why not? What a great position to be in.
What?
To leapfrog from this after winning a college championship and go right into the NFL.
Yeah, it's awfully funny how this is all working out, isn't it? Because
Chargers with so many
wanted
openings right now. You've got the elders moving on, well, except for Belichick or wherever he ends up going. But some of these other guys finally getting cut loose that should have been cut loose a while ago, to where now a coaching job in the NFL right now, there's a lot of tasty spots right now where we're looking at, and a lot of even good names out there. So a lot of
good
teams
coaching
could
candidates.
Land some good candidates. That's right, Jim.
There's a lot of good coaching candidates for sure. And the other thing too is, if Harbaugh wanted to go to the NFL, he could have done it last year. Chargers wanted him bad last year. They were willing to pay him whatever it would cost. He said no.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that he's doing it now and not last year.
All right. Are we caught up with the chat? I think we are, maybe.
We are.
Again, we brought up a bunch of the games here last week. We didn't touch on KC or the Bills game, really. Some of those were some cold games. The weather was nuts.
It was brutal. The Dolphins were freezing their fins off.
Yes.
They couldn't wait to go back to Florida.
Yes. It did.
I mean,
it did seem like they were.
I will say, I'm not making excuses, but Tua played god awful.
Yeah.
Like he had one of the worst games this year that he could possibly have. I don't know if it was because of the cold, but it didn't look like it. It almost looked like some of the throws that he was making, it just was poor decision making, or just not putting enough on it. Like there was times where he had Tyreek Hill open deep and he underthrew it to where Hill couldn't even get back in time to catch it. So Dolphins,
those frozen balls.
And I'll say that the defensive side for the Dolphins, they just didn't have a good game plan for Kansas City. They played god awful. I understand they were heavily injured coming into that matchup, and they were missing some key parts of that defense. But good God, like, show up! Like it was kind of like it was a terrible game to watch.
Yeah,
because after Kansas City gained control of the game, you're like, oh, this is over, and sure enough, it was, because Miami didn't even fight back to even make it, respectable.
Yeah. And that didn't even just look like both teams were ready just to get the hell out of there and out of the cold. Didn't it look like they were just even Kansas City was just running the ball some more and like, well, dude, let's just go. Let's just run this clock out. Is it time yet?
One thing you can't do against Kansas City is play zone.
Yeah.
And Vic Fangio called zone plays all night long.
Yep.
It was too easy for Patrick Mahomes.
Yep. And the Bills get it done. The Rams and the Lions, that game lived up to the potential.
That game was awesome.
How about that game?
That was awesome. That was a good game.
Holy moly. Both sides, either way. And what's funny is, again, the storyline going into it. Again, I'm watching NFL Network throughout the whole thing, the whole day, trying to talk it all up and this and that. And the whole story there, they were painting Matthew Stafford back to Detroit. Here it is. Oh, my goodness. And blah, blah, blah. And they kind of forgotten about the Jared Goff story and Jared Goff and Josh Reynolds seeing their former team and having redemption against that team and Jared Goff and what happened with that whole thing. I mean, he got traded away for Matthew Stafford, for a guy that franchise thought in mind was better than you, that can get you over the top, that you weren't able to do.
Right.
That's a huge chip on your shoulder, and you saw it in his emotion. He was almost breaking down in tears in that interview at the end. And then when he hits the locker room, again, everybody joining all in him and a lot of expletives. I never thought Jared Goff had a potty mouth like that, but he went all out. And they all believe in him, and they believe, and this is what I'm talking about, a team that doesn't have that thing, that stigma on themselves, like the Dallas Cowboys already expected to. They're not. The Detroit Lions have been the garbage of the league for so long. They have the second longest Super Bowl drought behind the Cardinals. So they haven't been there since 1948, I think it is. A championship rather. And here they are, they expected to do kind of well or better, but they're fighting and they believe in each other. They believe in Dan Campbell, absolutely, and what he preaches. And I think the sky's the limit for this team as long as they play as well as they did in this past game here.
One player that I thought wasn't going to be available was Sam Laporta. It looked like a pretty bad knee injury the week prior. And I was expecting him not to even play. And then when they announced he's active, I'm like, no way. I'm like, is he going to be able to stand? It looked pretty bad, and he was out there running around blocking and making plays, out in the open. So that right there, I feel like was a big to do for their offense. If they didn't have Sam Laporta, I feel like that offense would have struggled a little bit more than it did. So good thing Laporta was available for them, and I understand it's the playoffs. Do whatever you have to do to get on that football field, but he looked healthier than I thought he was going to be.
What did you think about the officiating in this playoffs so far?
It's always bad.
Yeah, I hear you
It's
there.
bad during the season. It's bad during the playoffs. Dude, we're never going to have a well-reffed football game where no one's going to complain. It's just there's always going to be a bad call or a missed call. It's always going to happen. Or a call where you're just they watched replay and they still got it wrong. It just happens.
Yeah.
And as frustrating it is as a fan, and maybe it dictates the game, maybe as a fan, you're going to be like, well, they just screwed us. The ref screwed us the whole game. But in between the 60 minutes that you get to play, the refs weren't calling a penalty on your team every single time. So it's you have to make the plays count when you can make them count. So yep, there's good games, there's bad games, and everything in between. And with the referees, I hope as long as we go farther into the playoffs and into the Super Bowl, I just hope that we don't have another game where it comes down to the last play of the game and a penalty got called where you didn't think it should have been, or vice versa. So
basically, yeah.
That's my only thing. If they miss holding calls, or if they just call a holding call that wasn't there and this, that, and the other thing, and that's just minor stuff, whatever. But it's going to happen. As long as there's not a critical call or non-call that kind of sways the momentum one way or the other for a team.
Yeah, because I know multiple people brought up the Chiefs game and things like that.
Oh, I got
some of that.
I don't think the Chiefs fans want the smoke here. I don't think they want it.
I feel that
Because I'll tell you right now, I know the Chiefs fans, yes, you got screwed on pass interference calls before. I get it. But you also got away with holding all season long. Like I'm talking
and
about
false
your
start a lot of times too. Remember
I'm
that?
talking Juwan Taylor has the most penalized. He's the most penalized offensive lineman in football. And on top of that, you have all your offensive linemen at times. I'm not saying every snap, but a lot of the times they're literally bear hugging. They're grabbing the outside shoulder pads and they're holding and pulling and tugging, and not a single flag. So I don't want to hear it from Chief fans. Don't want to hear it.
Yep.
You guys get away with penalties, just like some other big time teams. And once in a while, when you get screwed, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah,
Get over it.
And like I said, after when all that was going down in the season, I said the refs are piling it up because they're going to give them all the calls in the playoffs, and that's what it is. They're saving it. But
They're picking and choosing now.
I think in the Rams and the Detroit Lions game though too, I think the Rams offensive linemen were holding so many times though too, and never got called for it too. On Aiden Hutchinson, dude, he was getting yoked up so many times and no calls.
Yep.
It was frustrating at times to watch with that.
Oh, yeah.
But, they persevered. They edged it out by 1 point, Joe. What a game!
And that's my problem though. Is like I don't have a problem with officials maybe getting a call wrong, and it's not that big of a deal. It was like, oh, they missed that, they missed that. But when it's blatant, when it's just out in the open, and you have a defense like Aiden Hutchinson putting his hands up while he's being held, it's like, look.
While he's going like this.
Yeah, the guy's dragging him down and stuff. Like, throw the flag. Like, it's so blatant. You got it. You got to call it. You can't just.
Yeah.
Oh nope, I didn't see it. I'm not looking that way. No, come on, just do your jobs. Like that's all I'm saying. Like, listen, it's one thing to throw the flag and then review it and say, okay, that's not a penalty. At least you got it right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or maybe it was pass interference, whatever. But it's another thing to what seems like at times in certain games where you almost wonder, what are they watching? Are they doing their responsibility as each individual ref has? Like the line judge, you're supposed to be paying attention to the line the whole play through, not watch the ball go deep down the field. Don't take your eyes off of it. The guy might have been thrown down. That could have been holding. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I wonder if they're actually doing the jobs that they're supposed to be doing, all of them collectively. So,
absolutely.
And I feel like that's where you start to see some non-calls is because of that.
Yep.
Could be wrong, but I'm just saying, it just seems like it.
Absolutely. All right, Joe, before we get into our picks, why don't you tell everybody what else they could do that isn't the wrong thing to do, and that's to like and subscribe to our page and our YouTube.
Well, thanks for that introduction. But it's very simple, just like Jim said. I mean, head over to YouTube.
I even made it simpler. I have a QR code we can scan right now.
That's
Just
right.
use your phone.
Head over to YouTube. Hit that subscribe button for us. Hit that notification bell, if you will, to let you guys know when we go live. You can also, of course, follow us anywhere you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, you name it. We're there. Hit the follow and join us. Just do us a huge favor. Help us grow this football community of ours. We really do appreciate all the know-it-alls that have chimed in the chat, that have, you guys are a bigger part of this show than you realize, because this whole show was initially put together to be interactive, to give you guys, a little bit of a voice and bounce ideas off and get your questions and whatnot. So keep, dropping those comments every single week. Every Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m., we'll be here. Make sure you tune in and join us in Talking Football. And we're going to be here throughout the year. So
absolutely.
We will be having our little hiatus right after the Super Bowl. But we're going to be here for everything, whether it be free agency, the draft. We do our own scouting to give you guys, who we think teams should be drafting. And then as we go into training camps and what have you until the next season. So we're here for it. Long haul. Hope you guys will be too.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are like my family that I like to talk to from a distance, but wouldn't exactly want to have hanging out like every single weekend. So it's a lot of fun.
Exactly.
All right, next, so we got the picks coming up. Picks competition's tight, Joe. You gain another game here too. This is the week.
This
is the week you can do it.
No, I can't. It's mathematically impossible for me to make it.
It's mathematically possible to tie. If I win one game, it's over though.
No,
so we'll see.
I can't go opposite on them.
Yeah, you can't though. You can't just because then. It
just doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like there's two games. There's two games where I don't think there's a chance the other team wins.
I think there's one game that this other team can't win. I think the Packers and 49ers, I think the 49ers walk away with that one.
I do too.
Every other one I think is up in the air.
I don't know if Houston
the Texans
can.
Because like you said though, the Ravens have kind of brushed off these teams before.
Mm-hmm.
Who's hungrier? These guys are resting. You've seen teams start off lethargic on rest. We've seen Lamar Jackson look good in the pocket and make some throws, but we've also seen him not get it there, and it's so what do? They're going to run the ball and try and get him out and running it around and get Gus Edwards involved too and get it going for them. That's going to be their game plan though too, but we've seen if that pass rush gets in and can disrupt them a little bit while they're trying to pass, who knows? But getting to that, why don't we just start off with that game? Here's the playoff picture, the know-it-all playoff picture. Let's get it right at it. Baltimore at home with the Houston Texans here, Joe. What do you got here in this one?
Well, Baltimore has ran through the league pretty much. They were one of the few that have beaten the 49ers in their own house and able to take it to them. So they've made a statement. Baltimore has a very physical team. We know how great their defense has always been. Past 10 years, it's always been rock solid. And then offensively, it's gotten better this year. Lamar Jackson has gotten better as a quarterback. And now that he has more weapons to throw to, and it's hard to beat them. Point blank, it's very difficult to beat Baltimore. They can be beaten, but they're very hard to beat. Houston, on the other hand, they're a little bit banged up. They're missing a couple of wide receivers this week. They're probably not going to be able to play, which might hinder them offensively, maybe. But yeah, on the other part of it too is I'm not so sure this D-line is going to be able to get in on Lamar Jackson in passing plays, and the running game to me is going to be the critical part. So if Baltimore can establish their run game, and Houston has an issue stopping it, I feel like that's the game that's going to be over. The Texans have a really good defense. Ravens have one of the better defenses. So I don't know. I don't think Houston has a shot in this game. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I think I have to take them because
just like I said, it could be either
way.
It's
the only one. Yeah. It's literally the only one that I think that maybe. I mean, it's a stretch. Yeah. It's a big stretch.
Yeah. And the Ravens, like you said, they have been tough, especially even at home and stuff, but they have overlooked them. Again, going in there, they have been unstoppable. And the fact that really any of these top teams in the AFC, whenever they face the top team in the NFC, they've destroyed them. So when it gets come down to the Super Bowl, I think it is highly favored with the AFC team.
And one other thing, too, about this game is Houston and Baltimore don't know each other at all. Mm-hmm. Like, they've never faced each other this season, and they're all just going off a game film.
Yeah.
So I feel like the first quarter, maybe even into the second, it's going to be more of a chess match. They're trying to figure each other out. What do they do better? What do we do better? That type of thing. And then I feel like it'll be close early on, but then somebody's going to blow up. Somebody's going to find a weakness. Somebody is going to pull away in the second half.
Yep. So, I mean, again, I'm going to err on the side of caution here, too. I'm going to go with the Ravens here. Again, it can't harm me for that, though, either, right? The Packers and the 49ers are going to be Saturday night. That's going to be a fun game, I think, either way, though, too, because I'm interested to see how the Packers really attack this 49ers team. 49ers are tough to play at home as well, but they're off rest, too. Let's see how they get it going, but they have so many weapons here. Again, they can attack from any angle. Christian McCaffrey. It's crazy when you got a team where you have 2 of your players on the offense are up for the league MVP right now. Right. One running back and then the quarterback too on top of it. And you even have great players on after that, even George Kittle, and and Debo and all that. Ayuk, it's crazy. So this is going to be a tough hill for the Packers. Are they going to ride high after that win of the Cowboys, or did they exhaust themselves after coming out with such an emotional win? It's going to be interesting to see how this Packers team comes out. But one thing is sure. I think Jordan Love's going to come out the same cool, collect dude. That's just the way he is, man. So he's going to do his best to try and do what they can. I say they try and keep running the ball, wear out that defense, keep the offense off the field as much as they can. A lot of Aaron Jones and the running backs.
I don't think they're going to find much running room. And not to mention their D-line is exceptional. Like, that's where I think the big difference is. Because, like, last week it was nice. You were able to, as Green Bay Packers, go into Dallas, upset the Cowboys, and all well and good. Now you're facing a completely different beast, a team that the Cowboys could never come close to. And now you're up for debate here. Can you get it done? I don't have a concern offensively for Green Bay. I feel like they could maybe find some in the passing game anyway. I feel like they could maybe find some holes in the defense from time to time. But overall, this Niners team, man, they are so good. And then Green Bay's defense, they did a good job against Dallas, but this is a whole different animal. They got so many more weapons. They're so much more creative on offense that good luck. Yeah. I got the Niners in this one. I don't think there's a shot that the Packers end up winning this game.
Yep.
It was great that they made it this far as a 9-8 team and a very young team, the youngest. It's good. And this actually is boding well for their future because they made it to the playoffs. They upset a team. Now, if they end up losing this week, they can go into the offseason and be like, hey, we can just make ourselves stronger and then be even better the following year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next then we've got Sunday's games. 2 games on Sunday. The Bucs and the Lions.
Oh, boy.
That's going to be exciting to watch again. That's going to be just as intriguing to me as what this Rams game was after seeing what the Bucs did. And that's even with a game where Mike Evans, again, another guy who does well, very physical, but at times the dropsies. Just gets it on his hands, get balls. Baker Mayfield threw him a ball that was right in the basket, and it was a great tip of the hat to Baker Mayfield. Just throwing it, launching it, deep ball, launch code right there, and off his hands. And you're like, dude, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Mike Evans, like you're the guy. But luckily, again, they've got the ball. They've got. Otten did really well, too. That tight end, Otten, getting really involved in the offense. And, Godwin, they just spread it around all over the ball. So that's a good thing about this team. They have a lot of different weapons on offense. They can move it around wherever they want, and that defense has been playing well. Lions, good thing they're at home because, again, get that crowd going. The crowd was really super excited last one. They were quiet when the offense was going. They were loud when the defense was on.
That's how you have to be as a crowd.
Absolutely. No, but sometimes some of these fans get confused.
They just cheer.
They got to cheer. They got to come down.
Yelling
these guys were automatically quiet already. Like, dude, it's time to be quiet now. And then they move on.
There's a reason why we're doing this.
Yes. So
please be quiet.
It's awesome. They've got the home field advantage, and everybody talks about the redemption song of Jared Goff, but also now Baker Mayfield on the redemption too. Imagine that Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff. Baker Mayfield actually making it into the playoffs arena, going deep, and maybe even that Super Bowl run. That would be amazing. What a story there for Baker, who started off with the Cleveland Browns, was trying to take them to the promised land, didn't get there, was moved along.
Wouldn't that be
and now here he is.
Wouldn't that be the slap in the face to sign him? Huh?
Yeah.
Like, you better sign this guy.
Right? Yeah. And then Jared Goff again, not, you're not the guy. We're getting Stafford to get
I think you got to do that anyway at this point. If you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you got to re-sign Baker Mayfield.
You have to.
You have to. Because you don't have an answer yet.
Yes.
Now, maybe this upcoming draft, you take a quarterback and groom him behind Baker and see what happens. But you didn't have one when Tom Brady left. You were lucky. Yes. To get Baker Mayfield because there was other teams interested, and they just said once they brought him in, they're like, yeah, we want you here, sign right here. So good on Tampa for getting Baker Mayfield, and good on Baker, like being able to go to another new team, learning another offense, and executing the way he has been. So we'll see how far Tampa can go for sure.
Yeah, but the Lions there, and it's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a one-score game again, probably within 3 points. I'm going to go with the Lions, though, because I really want the Lions to go far. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucs could do it.
Yeah,
My soul is in the Lions.
I think the Lions are going to get this job done. I'm going to go with Tampa because they do have a legitimate shot of upsetting Detroit.
Oh, absolutely.
I will say this, though. If Detroit has an issue with running the ball and all the pressure is on Jared Goff, usually it doesn't bode well for Goff.
Yes.
Goff does kind of buckle under the pressure when everything's on his shoulders. He's got to execute all these passing plays, and they end up becoming one-dimensional to the point where defenses are pinning their ears back, getting after Goff and making him rush his throws. That's when the Lions offense gets into trouble. So, and the Buccaneers have the defense to do it. We saw last week. I mean, oh my God, Todd Bowles was dialing up blitzes left and right.
He was.
And really sending a lot of pressure often.
Yep.
To where there was always at least one, maybe two blitzers that were coming free. So look for them to do that again against Goff. And if Goff can weather the storm, I feel like early on, and just get the ball out to the the outliers, the guys on the sides, your dump off plays, and just kind of let's kind of get through this part. And then when we can open up our offense normally, when they stop sending the pressure and we keep killing them that way, that's what they have to do. So Buccaneers on offense, though, this is a Detroit Lions team that, other than the front seven, they have a lot of weaknesses in the back end. You can expose them in the passing game, and I feel like that kind of plays well for the Buccaneers offensively. That's what they like to do because they don't really have a running game.
Yeah.
We saw that last week. Yeah, I get it. Rashad White had a decent game, but let's be honest. Rashad White is not a very good running back. He
had gaping holes.
The run blocking was insane last week. It was insane.
Yes.
So, but they normally can't run the football.
Yes.
So I feel like this is kind of like one of those matchups where Tampa Bay can score points. It's going to be up to the other side. Can the defense kind of lock down the Lions' offense? So I think this is, yet again, the Lions have another, not only just a tough game, but I feel like this is also another game of the week type of game.
Yes.
Where this is the game that I'm most interested in. I don't think the Packers can put up enough fight against the Niners. So I'm like, I'll watch the game, but I'm not going to be as interested. The other one would be Houston, Baltimore. Yeah. That one I'm curious about to see how Houston can go into a hostile environment with a rookie quarterback and how they're able to negotiate that game and be able to execute plays.
Yeah, and even bringing up one small thing about that game, as it goes with contracts and quarterbacks, a lot of the quarterbacks that made those bigger extensions, like when we talk about Dak Prescott, and he's got to figure out something for his team to get back there and be able to get everybody signed. Justin Herbert got his deal, and they didn't make it. They didn't do very well. The Bengals with Joe Burrow, he got injured early. They didn't make it. A lot of these guys that re-signed those bigger contracts aren't even here. But Lamar Jackson is, so he's looking to make do on that whole thing, and the reason why he got that extension and be one of those quarterbacks to make it succeed this season.
Yeah, I mean, different situations, obviously.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't discount those quarterbacks.
No.
I think they're all good quarterbacks, and they're definitely going to help their teams in the future to win games. So the fact that Lamar Jackson is once again in the playoffs, I think you have to give credit to that organization. We've said it before where the GM of Baltimore and the whole organization really – about how they've been able to really well keep the team mostly together. And when there is a weakness, they're able to find the right player to insert and not miss a beat. And that to me is like, that's the way you have success long term. And they've done a really good job of it. And maybe they were one of the teams early this year where people weren't paying too much attention to them. Well, everyone just kind of thought, yeah, they'll be competitive, but how good are they really going to be? But now here's the answer. Like we've seen throughout the season how much improved their defense has gotten, how their offense has improved too under Todd Monken, the new offensive coordinator. He's been able to work with Lamar Jackson, with utilizing the running game and the passing game both. So Baltimore Ravens, definitely very, very tough team to beat. That's going to be an interesting game.
Yep, and then finally here we've got the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Here we are, Bills, the 2 seed, Kansas City, the 3rd coming in here. This is Patrick Mahomes' first away game here
in the
going
playoffs,
in the playoffs here, and it's the right time, I think, for the Bills. Again, a late push. This is what we talked about earlier when the Eagles backdooring it in not a hot streak, on a slump, and look what they looked. They looked like they were slumping in there. Bills, red hot, firing, moving forward, got the home field advantage so they can play in the cold. That don't mind them at all. They play in the freaking snow. That doesn't bother them. And the Kansas City Chiefs just got coming off of a game where they were just playing in the ice cold. But I think the Bills have the advantage in this one. One being home, those fans, they can handle it. But the Kansas City Chiefs, people aren't afraid of them anymore. Again, they've looked at this team, the defense, not doing as well as they have in the past. And that offense, they keep bringing up do they miss stealing Tyreek Hill and all this other nonsense, all this other shit. They still get it done, but again, still they found it in Rashee Rice, but that's the guy they got to focus on, and then also Travis Kelce here, keep him in lock. It's going to be a good game. I think that Sean McDermott has done a really great job because at one point before they made this run, it looked really bad for that defense because of the injuries. It looked like they couldn't do anything, and they were missing Matt Milano and such, so that it was hindering them. But turned it around, pushed through, and I like the Bills here at home. Circle the wagons. Let's go.
One thing that I have an issue with the Bills is that they're banged up. They didn't have their starting linebackers. They still don't. Their wide receiver Gabe Davis looks like he's going to miss the game. Their corners are all banged up too. Like they're coming in here and they're not very healthy. That's my one concern. The Chiefs, on the other hand, are coming into this game pretty healthy, and I don't think it matters where they played it, whether it was in Buffalo or Kansas City, because they're both cold weather teams. So there's no advantage or disadvantage there. The one thing that Kansas City does have an advantage on is the fact that Bills haven't been able to beat them. They've just been able to outcoach them. Simply, it's not that the Bills don't have the talent to. It's just that when it comes time for game planning, they're just not up to par. I wonder if this game is going to be any different now that it's at Buffalo. Maybe it gives them a little bit more juice. Maybe Sean McDermott has learned his lessons from playing Kansas City in the recent past, and look for Buffalo to kind of try to get this win here. I like the Bills in this one. I'm not picking the Chiefs.
Oh, okay. For it sounded like you're like, oh man, it was just funny. You really do that to me sometimes. I like it. Though.
I got to give the whole
Me.
spectrum of each team.
I know you're like, there's like these guys are really injured. These guys are totally healthy. Doesn't matter. I'm thinking you're going
Jim,
Chiefs, but
you should have known better. That I'm not going to pick the Chiefs.
You can't pick the Chiefs.
I can't.
Okay. We'll both be hoping, and a lot of people out there will also be hoping, because then that means no more Taylor Swift on the television during the games, so people will be excited about that. Until she maybe shows up for the Super Bowl if they are still exiting for some reason.
She should be canceled.
Yeah, I hope she doesn't end up like, surprise, I'm doing a halftime show now. Suck it. Like
wait until she starts singing like the pre-game football show.
Oh gosh! Oh yeah,
just
take
wait
over,
for that.
Take over. What's her name?
Yeah.
Carrie Underwood.
Carrie
How about
Underwood.
that for a Sunday night? Oh my gosh, that would be terrible.
Next season,
that's her next
look
thing.
for
Now
it next
she's gonna,
season.
she's gonna do that to everybody. She's like, I hate it when you guys bring that up. So now, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you on that one. That's funny. All right, so that's it. That's our show for tonight. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. We had a lot of good comments out there. Appreciate the interaction with you guys. It's gonna be a great divisional matchups here. We can't wait to see them. And I guess we'll talk about it next week. What do you think, Joe?
That's it. Sounds good.
All right,
Let's
see you
do
later.
it.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday nights for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.